Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm recording this on September 28th. So yesterday, Israel bombed the headquarters of Hezbollah in Beirut. And it wasn't known if the leader of Hezbollah was killed in that strike. Early this morning, there was confirmation that he was killed, not only by the IDF, but also by Hezbollah officials. So he has been killed. My understanding is his daughter was killed in the strike too. So I'm going to be playing some videos about this, giving my perspective. Keep in mind and watch the video where I start talking about the Taiwan Strait and how some of these events are correlated. All right. And this important date of September 24th, 2024. All right. Watch that video. You'll get an understanding that there's some sort of domino effect, right? And nodal point connection between what's going on in Europe, what's going on in the Middle East, and what's going on in Asia. All right. So it's really important to stay abreast with the news. But this is a major victory for the Israeli offensive in Lebanon. All right. It looks like it's going to escalate, and it looks like there's going to be a ground offensive by the IDF into Lebanon. All right, so I'm going to play the videos, but before I do that, I'd like to talk about a new product that I have in my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and it's the Cottrell. Cottrell will help to build muscle, maintain muscle, all right? A lot of times when we get older, we have a problem being able to maintain good muscle mass. So take Cottrell every day to be able to have a better muscle mass, have more energy. You'll be moving around more, and you can add this to your anti-aging protocol. It also has in here lignans, all right? And as I have said before, lignans is a very important supplement to improve your immune system, and it's an antioxidant. So this is a dual purpose product. So not only is it helping to build muscle, but it will bring down inflammation, and it's also an antioxidant to help with your immune system. So there's a dual purpose with this product, but this is primarily for really muscle gain, muscle maintenance. A lot of people, when they get older, they have a problem with that, and this is a great way to improve your skeletal muscle structure. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Cottrell. I'll discuss about this a little bit later, perhaps in the next video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start talking about anti-aging boxes. All right. A lot of the videos that I do, it's all about individual supplements, right? But I have curated these anti-aging boxes to bring down the price point. If you buy in these box form, in a bundle form, you'll get a lower price point instead of buying all of them individually. Now, the first box that I want to talk about before we go to the video is actually the beginner's anti-aging box. So it's the anti-aging beginner's box. Okay. And what do you get with that box? You get three items. Okay. And the first item that you get is the structured silver, all right, liquid. And how you use this is you take a teaspoon of it a day, you swish it in your mouth, you gargle with it about 20 seconds or so, and then swallow it, all right? It neutralizes pathogens and maintains the mucosal barrier. So you're trying to neutralize pathogens and improve your immune system. And also in that anti-aging box for beginners, you get vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is important, not just to absorb calcium, but also to have cells to go into apoptosis if they're infected. So this is important, all right, to take if during the cold season when cells get infected, there's many pathogens have a capability of shutting down the apoptosis pathway, especially the viruses. In addition, it's a gene expression cofactor. So this is needed for proper cellular processes. So you need vitamin D3. I take a soft gel in the morning, a soft gel in the evening. In addition, you also get C60 in a 2 ounce. You take C60, take a teaspoon a day, and that will soak up free radicals. You can choose from MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, or avocado oil. The reason why C60 is in an oil is because C60 is lipid soluble. So you just take a teaspoon of this a day, and it will neutralize the pathogens, or not neutralize, I'm sorry, neutralize free radicals, all right? Because C60 is a very strong antioxidant. So you have a product in the anti-aging box where you're neutralizing pathogens, you're getting rid of cells that are infected to get, you're trying to get those cells to go into apoptosis through D3, and you're soaking up the free radicals with a very potent antioxidant, which is C60. In addition, C60 will help to boost up your mitochondrial health, all right, and your ATP will go up. So with this box, you're going to get more energy, you're going to soak up those free radicals and slow down the aging process. D3 is going to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis, and you're going to neutralize pathogens and maintain a mucosal barrier in your oral cavity for the anti-aging beginners box. Okay, so throughout the videos, I'm going to talk about each of the boxes and what the differences are. But for the beginners box, you get the structural nanosilver liquid, you get the vitamin D3, and you get your choice of C60 2 ounce, coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. So that's the anti-aging beginners box. So let's begin with the videos that have been published today confirming the death of the Hezbollah leader. What's going on here? Oh, that's just a live stream. Let's go to here.
To handle it without directly getting involved, because the moment Iran gets involved, then the USA will get involved. And once the USA come into this battle,
CNN
then
News
we
18.
have total loss to Iran. Iran will be almost, military leadership will be eliminated. Also, then nuclear installation can be attacked. And so the reason is that considering all the plus or minus
Sounds like
possibility of Iran going directly into the war.
BBC, here we go.
I can just bring you some breaking news. We have, up until this moment, not known whether those strikes have hit him, but the AFP news agency says the Israel army says Hezbollah chief Nasrallah, quote, eliminated in Beirut strike. So that confirmation coming through just in the last few moments as we were taking a look at the history of the man. And Israel just saying via AFP news agency, the army there saying that the Hezbollah chief, Nasrallah, has been, quote, eliminated in a strike in Beirut. Our correspondent, John Donaldson, is in Jerusalem. And John, just getting this breaking news just in the last few minutes there about the leader.
Yeah, and it's not just from AFP. We've just had a statement from the Israeli military put out on X saying Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorize the world, as they put it. So that would seem to be confirmation that the leader of Hezbollah has been killed. Now, throughout this period of escalation over the last few months, I think Israel has been making the calculation that Iran, who of course backs Hezbollah, is not ready to get involved directly in this conflict in a full-scale regional war. Well, the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah is going to put that theory to the test.
And just remind us the significance here, the potential implications of this moment, John.
Well, it would be a huge moment. We know that over the last few weeks, Israel has managed to eliminate very senior military commanders within Hezbollah in a series of strikes. But by taking out the leader of the group, who's been in power of Hezbollah for several decades, I mean, this is a huge moment. And as I say, the significance really is, where does this lead us? Because Hezbollah, funded by, backed by, set up by Iran to oppose Israel, and now to have its leader taken out, Iran is going to be under enormous pressure to respond.
Okay, John, thank you very much for that. Just want to head straight now live to Beirut. Hugo Bashega is there for us. Hugo, we had these reports that he had been targeted, that Hassan Nasrallah had been targeted, but until a few minutes ago, we had no confirmation as to what had actually happened. Now we have that confirmation from the Israel our military that he has been killed.
Exactly, and as John was saying, this is a significant moment because Hassan Nasrallah, the powerful leader of Hezbollah, had been leading the group for decades, and he was highly influential and had been leading, these attacks, this Hezbollah response to what was happening in Gaza. And the fear here in Lebanon has always been that this country would end up being dragged into a conflict with Israel, a wider conflict that could have unpredictable and catastrophic consequences for this country. And it seems that this is exactly what's happening now. We're seeing that the Israeli military is carrying out a wide offensive against Hezbollah with widespread airstrikes and now killing the head of the group. So what the Israeli military will see as a very successful operation in degrading Hezbollah, in weakening Hezbollah, which is a powerful organization. It's always been seen by the Israeli military as much more powerful than Hamas. It is a group that has tens of thousands of rockets, including precision-guided missiles that can strike deep inside Israel. And the Israeli military has been trying to weaken Hezbollah to destroy some of the infrastructure that has been used by the group. And I think the indications are that this operation is going to continue after killing Hassan Nasrallah, to try to degrade Hezbollah and weaken the group so it no longer poses a threat to Israel and all the residents of northern Israel.
And Hugo, just talk us through, if you can, what we know about the specific strikes here that are believed to have killed him.
Well, it was a massive strike last night. It was the most powerful strike that hit Beirut in this conflict. We could actually hear the strike from here in downtown Beirut, which is about 6 to 7 kilometers from Tahrir, which is Hezbollah's stronghold in southern Beirut. And obviously there was a lot of panic. There was chaos last night in Tahrir. I was in Tahrir right after the attack, and crowds of people were trying to leave Tahrir. And let me give you a sense of what's happening here right now. This is Martyr Square in central Beirut, and hundreds of people are here. They spend the night here after leaving Tahrir. As you can see, lots of families here, women, children. A lot of people could only bring some bags and rucksacks with some belongings after fleeing their houses during those Israeli airstrikes last night and also overnight. And this morning there were more warnings by the Israeli military that urging residents to evacuate certain parts of Tahrir that, according to the Israeli military, are near facilities that have been used by Hezbollah. The Israeli military accusing Hezbollah of hiding weapons facilities under civilian buildings. So the indication that these Israeli airstrikes are going to continue. Hezbollah, in a statement overnight, denied that it was using those residential areas to hide weapons. But again, the accusation, the claim by the Israeli military is that Hezbollah has been using the civilian population as human shields. But as you can see, this is the impact on the population. Tents have been set up here, and again, this is putting a lot of pressure of the Lebanese authorities who are struggling to cope with the sheer number of casualties from these Israeli airstrikes, and also with tens of thousands of people who've been displaced because of this conflict.
Hugo, thank you for that. Just going to go back to John Donaldson, who's still live for us in Jerusalem. John, we saw a bit of the impact there. Hugo showed us of these strikes. If you can, put into context what this latest development actually means when it comes to Israel's war aims, effectively, its strategic priorities in launching these strikes across the border.
I just got a strike on one of my channels. It's the episode 72, Gen Zero episode 72, that talk about the Taiwan Strait and this connection between September 24th, 2024. So it's important that this is the reason why you should subscribe to all my channels, the 4 channels on YouTube and Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. So please go to Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble to see Gen Zero 72, because YouTube has removed episode 72. All right. This is the reason why. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it does happen. All right. This is why I keep on saying, make sure you subscribe to all my channels, because there's gigantic censorship. And in that video, I go into detail that of the problems that are happening with the Taiwan Strait, how it was tied to September 24th, 2024 is kind of like this concern that I had. It's going to be talking about larger war. All right. And in that video, I also talk about Mayor Adams and the problems that he has in New York City. But the reason why I was taken down was because of the Taiwan Strait. So there's huge censorship that's going on. So pay attention. I also talk about the sinking of the sub, the nuclear sub by the Chinese. So please make sure that you watch that episode on Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. And make sure you subscribe to all my channels, because you don't know when the censorship happens. All right. All the links are in the description of this video to be able to subscribe to those different channels.
Killing of Hassan Nasrallah fit into that?
Well, if you want to stop the hunger in the world, stop scrolling. Right now in North Gaza, children are going to bed hungry every night. The recent conflict has left many families without food, shelter, and hope. You can help.
Well, it's a huge victory for Israel at this stage. You know, you had Prime Minister Netanyahu telling the UN General Assembly yesterday that he was vowing to defeat Hezbollah, and this is clearly a huge blow to the organization. Now, they will have some sort of succession plan in place, but you have to remember that over the last few weeks and months, Israel has taken out many of these senior figures within Hezbollah, so that succession plan might not be immediately apparent. Now, up until now, the missiles that Hezbollah has been firing over into Israel, and there have been again new barrages being fired this morning, have been relatively unsophisticated, I suppose. But although Hezbollah has lost a lot of its senior leadership, including its leader Hassan Nasrallah, it still has a huge arsenal of missiles, some of which are much more deadly. It's got guided missiles capable of reaching all parts of Israel. And if it chooses to use those, they are going to be much more damaging to Israel. So I think there will be a huge welcoming, I think, here in Israel that Hassan Nasrallah has been killed. The operation against Hezbollah is much more popular, I suppose. The country is much more united in the need for that than it is, say, for the continued operation in Gaza, where many people feel that the government should have done more to get the hostages out. There's a huge backing for the operation against Hezbollah. Israel has vowed to get its citizens able to return to the north, some 60,000 Israeli citizens who've not been able to live in their homes for the past year. And it will see this as a significant move toward beating Hezbollah.
John, thank you for that. Just bring you one more line on this. AFP, again, news agency, saying that a source close to Hezbollah says contact with Nasrallah was lost since Friday night. So that appears to marry up with the information that we've had from the Israeli military, saying that they have eliminated the threat of Hassan Nasrallah, and now AFP quoting a source close to Hezbollah saying contact with Nasrallah lost since Friday night.
All right, so let's go to another video. So that was BBC. This is DW.
Let's bring in Makram Rabah as airstrike on Beirut. The Israeli Defense Forces said in a statement that Nasrallah will, quote, no longer be able to terrorize the world. Israel struck Hezbollah's headquarters in the city late on Friday, with reports indicating they were targeting Nasrallah. The Lebanese militant group, which normally confirms major deaths among its ranks on the same day, has yet to comment on Nasrallah's fate. He has headed the group for some 3 decades and is credited with turning it into a major fighting force. Israel's military chief, Herzi Halevi, said the attack on Nasrallah had been prepared for a long time and would not be the end of the operation.
This is not the limit of our capabilities. It must be very clear. There are more tools at our disposal. And the message is simple. Anyone who threatens the citizens of the state of Israel will be reached, whether in the north, the south, or even in more distant places. This attack was prepared for a long time, executed at the right moment with great precision, and now we are moving forward with careful preparation for the next steps.
Commanders, let's bring in DW correspondent Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem. Hello, Tanya. What are you hearing from Israel regarding Nasrallah's death and possible retaliation by Hezbollah?
Well, most certainly everyone here was waiting to hear what had happened after this massive strike on Friday evening in the Dahir suburb in southern Beirut. And the army said then this morning that they actually indeed killed the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah. According to this announcement, also other commanders, senior commanders, were killed in what they described as a central command center of the organization underneath residential buildings that the Israeli Air Force targeted there. Now, we have not heard a confirmation yet from Hezbollah as to whether Nasrallah was killed. Now, this is seen as a watershed moment here. Of course, Nasrallah has led the organization for over 30 years. His predecessor was also assassinated in 1992 by Israel. And, this comes when Israel has taken escalatory steps since, for the past 2 weeks, from the pager and walkie-talkie attacks to killing senior commanders. And on Monday, this massive air offensive on southern Lebanon and eastern Lebanon. And of course, now this, we don't know yet the human toll of these airstrikes on southern Beirut. But of course, there's also the question here in Israel now, what will Hezbollah do next? What will a possible retaliation look like? We've been hearing already air raid sirens as in the past weeks, of course, going off in northern areas, but we don't know yet how large this will get.
Right. So how likely is it that we will now see an Israeli ground invasion?
All right, before we
Lebanon?
continue on, I apologize. I had to handle that whole strike issue. Let's talk about the anti-aging advanced box, what you get. You get the Health Max 35 to help to neutralize pathogens and maintain the mucosal barrier in your oral cavity. Again, you take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth 20 seconds, and then swallow. You get the D3, which helps to absorb calcium, do the apoptosis on cells and gene expression, because it's a gene expression cofactor. You get the vitamin C, which will help to boost up your immune system. The toothpaste, which is a toothpaste that's made from structural nanosilver. It'll help to neutralize pathogens, whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce that inflammation, that gum inflammation. The deodorant, you get to choose between peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, or citrus. This is made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It also helps to detoxify your body. So it's a deodorant for males and females. And the probiotic. This probiotic is the veggie cap probiotic. So that's what's in the advanced box, the anti-aging advanced box. You get the liquid, you get C60, which is an antioxidant. You get the D3, you get the vitamin C, you get the probiotic, your choice of deodorant, and the toothpaste. So that's the advanced box, the anti-aging advanced box.
How it was expected.
Well, we don't know yet exactly what the military will do as from now. And I think this also depends on the next steps by Hezbollah, potentially also by Iran. But we heard just there the IDF chief of staff, Hazia Levi, saying this is not the last tool in our toolbox. We've seen in the past days a build up at the northern border of ground forces. Also, reserve units have been called up. And having said that, there's a lot of, I think, substantial support for the air campaign right now in Lebanon against Hezbollah, what many Israelis see as a major threat to Israel. But this might change also if there's a ground invasion, because that is much more risky for the soldiers there on the ground. But at the same time, of course, we've heard military experts explaining that they probably need to go in to create a sort of buffer zone in this border area. So we have to wait and see, because it seems that Israel is unlikely, at least at this point in time, as it looks like, to back down.
Right. Only time will tell. DW correspondent Tanya Karima in Jerusalem. Thank you. Let's get more from journalist.
I don't know how I used to work before Monday.com.
The work management platform? Nah, I don't like people telling me how to work. I have my own ways.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Unique.
Let's get more from journalist Stella Mena. She joins us from Beirut. Stella, Israel claims that Hezbollah leader Nasrallah has been killed. What more can you tell us?
Yes, this is a statement that we've only, for now, have heard from the Israeli army. It is no surprise, as there has been speculations going on ever since last night, when Israeli army announced that Hassan Nasrallah was the target of the strike. Ever since then, people are wondering whether he is still alive or not. Yesterday, sources very close to Hezbollah have denied his death, saying that he's in a good state. But this is nothing uncommon so far. If we remember in August, when the Hezbollah commander, Fuad Shukr, was killed, this is exactly the same thing that happened back then. After the attack, the Hezbollah declared that he's still alive and nothing has happened, and later on then had to admit that Shukr was in fact killed.
Right. So basically, from what you're saying, there's not been any reaction so far from Hezbollah. What about general reactions inside the country?
So inside the country, the reactions are a bit different. There are some people on social media that are celebrating the deaths of Nasrallah. They seem to be very sure that this message is true, and they are very happy to read about the death of Nasrallah. But there are also some other people in the country who are more careful. They are waiting to hear what Hezbollah is going to say next. That Hezbollah has not said anything so far. It's no wonder they're probably still busy figuring out how to communicate the death, how to set up the PR, how to deal with it. And probably they're also busy to put that second in command in a safer place.
Right. So, if confirmed that he has been killed, what will this mean for Hezbollah?
If Nasrallah is indeed dead, that would have massive consequences for the organization. Hassan Nasrallah is known to be a very charismatic leader. He was very popular among the members of Hezbollah because he spoke the urban accent here. He often made jokes. He's also very linked to big successes that Hezbollah has achieved in the last couple of years. But he's not only a very important leader for the organization, he's also a key figure for the whole so-called axis of resistance and the Iranian regime. And if Nasrallah is dead, then Iran loses an important figure. Nasrallah was coordinating the attacks from Lebanon with the Iranian regime, and the regime now has to figure out what they are going to do. Nasrallah knew Lebanon much better than the Iranian regime. He had an insight into the country. He knew about political dynamics. So if he's really dead, he will leave a void that will be very hard to fill.
Right. Journalist Stella Mena in Beirut. Thank you. Let's get more. With me in the studio is DW Middle East analyst Shani Uzanes. Shani, we have no confirmation from the Lebanese side yet, but why is that the case?
Well, first of all, probably it's a good indicator of the chaos, the big chaos that's still, there after this operation of Israeli forces. According to Israeli IDF forces, they have dropped a ton of, a total sum of bombs in a weighing ton on that very building. I mean, there's very little left behind. And of course, it's also the ambiguity is part of a strategic tool. They would rather, the Lebanese, the Iranians, they would have liked to keep Israel in the dark for as long as possible. Israelis seem to be very confident in this action. I mean, there's no doubt they've been on Nasrallah's tails for a long time. I think there was strategically a decision to avoid hitting him until recently. There's been a shift in Israeli policy. We've seen it in the last 2 weeks, definitely starting September 17th, the Pages attack, when Israel decided to go into higher gear and no longer stick to this tit for tat kind of exchanges we've been seeing since October, and eventually in the peak that we saw last night, deciding to go for the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah himself.
There's no doubt how key Nasrallah was to Hezbollah. Now that, according to Israel at least, that he's no more, what happens? Who takes over?
That's a good question. And it's not a decision to be made in among the ranks of Hezbollah, whoever is still left there alone. This is definitely a question that the Iranians will have to do a lot with. And they would like to have somebody that they're close with, that they can trust, that the cadre of people left behind is not so big. I mean, on the one hand, Hezbollah was a very organized, hierarchical organization. And there have been people in the ranks of Hezbollah for years and years that have had experience, but because there was no democratic process of election, it was not easy to get a new vacancy in a way. It wasn't easy to get promoted. So there are people with enough experience, but it's not quite sure after these 2 weeks in Israel is very hard pressure on Hezbollah, who exactly is left. And it's going to be also interesting to see what the Iranians choose, in the sense that what we've been seeing since October 7th, Hezbollah's decision, Nasrallah's decision to step into this battle with Israel in solidarity with Palestinians, and the Iranians were officially congratulating that, and they've been, they're talking about their solidarity with Palestinian people, but then at the same time, de facto, they've been keeping sort of an arm's length away from that. They do not want to get sucked in completely into that war. And this step that Israel has taken yesterday, that changes the whole paradigm quite deeply. And Iranians are now facing the question, the Iranian regime and also the supreme leader himself, who was close and knew Nasrallah very well. How deep do we want to get into this? How much do we let what's happening in the Middle East, in Israel, in Palestine, with Gaza, all of that, how much do we let it kind of take over our agenda, which we know was actually focused on other things connected to the economy? There's also probably an understanding there needs to be more progress on the nuclear deal, which is the only safe umbrella they have as against what they see as hostility from the US and Israel. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Iranians deal with having lost this very important proxy on the verge of the Israeli border from the north, that is South Lebanon, by Hezbollah.
Right. How does this all play into Israel's ultimate goal? Especially, we've been talking about a possible ground invasion in this case, would that even still be necessary?
Well, it depends. I think Israel would like to avoid it as much as possible. A ground invasion is exactly where Israel starts to flail. It has clear advantage when it comes to airstrikes and air forces, when it comes to ground operation in the south of Lebanon, a place that is, a stronghold of Hezbollah, a lot of support, lots of also through the years infrastructure and capability to ambush and fight, give a good fight to Israeli forces. They have known it themselves as Israelis after 18 years in what was the buffer zone back then. Israel had to retreat in 2000. So for Hezbollah, it would be some sort of a gift that they're giving, the chance for fighting Israeli troops one-on-one on the ground level. Israel will try to avoid it. I'm not sure. I mean, when it talks about giving the Israeli citizens of the north the sense of security that is good enough in order for them to want to go back to their houses, I'm not sure Israel can avoid a ground invasion. It's yet to be seen. The next days are very crucial to see how this is unfolding, how fast, if at all, it's escalated. I suspect there will be some sort of response from Iran.
Right. Meanwhile, there's still talks of a possible ceasefire agreement. What are the chances that we'll see American intervention to make that happen?
We've seen Americans, up until
they're going to try. The Americans are going to try to have this ceasefire, calm down the situation. The Israelis they have the momentum, the battlefield momentum, and the thing is that even this morning, rockets were still being fired. So, and then you still have the proxy war, through Lebanon and Syria and the Houthis and through Hamas being funded by Iran. So this problem isn't going away anytime soon. A ceasefire is only kicking the can down the road. So with the battlefield momentum, there's no reason for Netanyahu to do a ceasefire. He's moving forward to dismantling Hezbollah. And so Israel should keep on going. But with that said, what I want to do is go over the anti-aging deluxe box that I have. So in the deluxe box, you get the Max 35. You get the C60, which is a very strong antioxidant. You can pick from coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. And C60 it soaks up those free radicals, which are really important. D3 that gets rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis, and it's a gene expression cofactor. Vitamin C to improve your immune system. Probiotic to help to reset your gut biome and to improve your digestion and your metabolism. You get to choose your deodorant, either peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, or citrus. It's a dual purpose product. It also helps to detoxify your body. You get resveratrol, which is an antioxidant, and it also helps to get rid of senescent cells. And you get the structural nano silver toothpaste, which helps to neutralize pathogens, whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, and improve your gum line. So that's the advanced box, deluxe. The deluxe. Let me refer. Yeah, the anti-aging deluxe box.
This would come to some sort of agreement, because where the Americans stand is that there's going to be an escalation. There's going to be a lot of blood loss. There's going to be a lot of damage to infrastructure. It's going to weaken even more the already weak Lebanese country. And then there's going to be some sort of agreement. So maybe we can skip to the end and save the lives and the damage in the middle. I think it's a very logic way of saying things, but I think it kind of misses on the psychology of this dynamic, in the effort of both sides to deter each other, and about how the power struggle in the Middle East work. Showing a force is something that seems to be, at least by Israel now after October 7th, seems to be quite detrimental, quite important in trying to set up and build up its strength again. After the big blow of October 7th, Israel understands that it could be that it could have avoided it, but the psychological effect of it, of this deterrence, is something that cannot be achieved by an agreement. So I don't see it coming anytime soon. But also keep in mind, the Americans do not want to see this escalating and going out of hand, but at the same time, they're very much focused with their own agenda, with the elections coming. And so they need to be very carefully treading the line of how to keep this under some sort of manageable conflict,
Right.
while at the same time not letting it become a big topic with the elections.
Right. Shani Razan, CW Religious Analyst. Thank you.
You're welcome, Eddie.
Now, let's take a more in-depth look at Israel's aerial attack on Hezbollah's Beirut headquarters on Friday, which led to the reported death of the militant group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah.
The explosions were felt as far as 30 kilometers away. Multiple buildings were leveled in this residential suburb of southern Beirut. Israel's army quickly confirmed it was behind the strike.
Moments ago, the Israel Defense Forces carried out a precise strike on the central headquarters of the Hezbollah terror organization that served as the epicenter of Hezbollah's terror. Hezbollah's central headquarters was intentionally built under residential buildings in the heart of the Dakhil in Beirut.
The Israel Defense Forces released this footage showing Defense Minister Yoav Gallant monitoring the strikes on Beirut from Tel Aviv. Israeli media sources quoting officials say this man was the target, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. The strike came a day after Israel rejected a 21-day truce plan proposed by the United States and its allies, designed to prevent an all-out war in the Middle East. It's feared further escalation could prompt Hezbollah's backer Iran to enter the conflict. Israel and Hezbollah have been exchanging fire across the Israel-Lebanon border for over 11 months, since the October 7th terror attacks on Israel by Hezbollah's Palestinian ally Hamas. Both are considered terrorist groups by multiple countries. But this week, Israel dramatically intensified its strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, killing 700 people, according to Lebanese officials, and prompting more than 100,000 civilians to flee. On Friday, Iran's embassy in Lebanon vowed punishment for Israel, saying the strike, quote, changes the rules of the game. And that's just what international observers fear. With Israel reported to have moved thousands of troops towards the border in preparation for a potential ground invasion, the prospects of a wider war seem higher than ever.
Let's bring in Makram Rabah, Assistant Professor of History at the American University of Beirut. Hello and welcome, sir. What's your reaction to the news that Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah has been killed?
Well, I would say that this is a natural progression of events, especially that from the beginning of the war up until now, Hassan Nasrallah and Hezbollah, and by extension Iran, have refused to disconnect from the war in Palestine. And in addition to the fact that they have failed to understand that the world has changed. While many people are looking at the strike as a kind of a military victory, I think what is happening is basically it's a political decision to get rid of Hezbollah and as well as put Iran under trial in a way. Nasrallah's militia are not responsible only for the destruction of Lebanon, but in a way they were leading the so-called Iranian expansion plan in the region. And so we see that total collapse of Hezbollah and total collapse of the Lebanese state is something that every one of us as Lebanese should take a step back and think what will happen after the official declaration of Hezbollah that their leader and their so-called cult personality have been killed and his command has been wiped out.
Right. It's interesting what you say, because that's exactly what I want to hammer on, because we've not had a confirmation from Hezbollah yet, but if his death is confirmed, what could it really mean for Hezbollah and its operations?
Well, I think this idea that Hezbollah cannot be destroyed is something that was defeated in the streets of Beirut. The problem here is that Hezbollah is only a manifestation of Iran. And if left alone, Iran can go back to being a spoiler in the region. Unfortunately, I have no problem with actually the politics of Hezbollah, because this is something I'm willing to debate forever. However, we have to ask ourselves, where is the Lebanese government here? Because Hezbollah showed that he is not interested in the innocent civilians, first of all, by storing weapons and rockets within civilian populations. And explosions going off across Lebanon is a case in point. And more importantly, they have not set up any kind of a civilian emergency plan. Many of the innocent people that were driven out of their homes in their pajamas with their kids slept out in the open, sir. And this is something which is more tragic than the killing of Nasrallah. So here we have to say that one has to go back to the basics. First of all, the international community is clearly telling us we should implement UN Security Council Resolution 1559, which is basically no armed groups in Lebanon except the Lebanese army and the Lebanese state. So if the ruling establishment and the ruling elite do not convene immediately and elect a president and reformulate the government, Lebanon's tragedy will only be, what we are seeing is only just a sample of the ongoing tragedy, and this will become worse and worse as time goes by.
Right, and worse and worse is where world leaders don't want this to get. They want to prevent further escalation. Now, Israel has eliminated many Hezbollah leaders in recent days. Does Hezbollah still have a command structure, or could this be the end of Hezbollah?
I am someone who has never looked at Hezbollah's military capabilities with much admiration, and what had happened recently proves my point. First of all, Hezbollah is only a militia that is serving the purpose of Iran by suppressing the people of the region. Hezbollah is only good at killing Arabs and killing Lebanese and Syrians and Iraqis and Yemenis, and they were never ever geared towards really fighting Israel. And here, and more importantly, one of the cardinal sins of Hezbollah, that it has lost its compass, so to speak. Initially, when Hezbollah was founded in 1982, it was founded against the backdrop of the Israeli invasion. So they claimed they wanted to liberate land. At the moment, there's no occupied Lebanese land whatsoever to fight for. More importantly, when you do not have the national interest of the Lebanese in mind, this is what happens. So I don't think, and I actually have information that many of the counterattacks that the Hezbollah fighters are doing right now are more or less individual initiatives, meaning that they don't have any sort of contact with their leadership. More than 90% of Hezbollah's leadership are nowhere to be found. Some of them are dead in the rubble, and some of them are actually hiding within civilian population, which is basically very alarming.
Right. We cannot talk about Hezbollah without mentioning Iran, a main supporter and backer of Hezbollah. What does this mean for Iran?
Well, Iran now has a difficult decision. If they think that they can get away with destroying Lebanon and Palestine and simply just lay low, as the Iranian president at the moment tried to do at the UN General Assembly meetings, and saying that Iran wants to cooperate in order to establish security and stability in the region. Now they have been pulled out. So their bluff of being a kind of a positive factor will be determined in the next couple of days. Moreover, I believe that ultimately Netanyahu, as well as many Western countries, has gotten to this realization that if we do not address the elephant in the room, which is Iran, this will only be one episode in a series of other chapters that can only bring more death and destruction to the entire region as well as to the international community.
Right. Akram Rabah from the American University of Beirut. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so that's DW. All right, now this one is France 24. Before I do that.
Conflict isn't fair. Hunger isn't fair. Being forced to work at
I'm
the
going
age
to do
of
this
10,
shorter
not
version
fair.
of France
We just
24. There's
received
a longer one.
confirmation by Hezbollah and officials.
All right, but before we do that, the anti-aging super deluxe box. You get the Max 35. You get the C60. All right, you get choice of coconut, avocado, or extra virgin olive oil, 2 ounce. It's a very strong antioxidant, soaks up those free radicals. Vitamin C boosts up your immune system. B complex, what this does is it helps with energy levels and cellular metabolism. The first 5 B vitamins help to
improve your mitochondrial performance and health. Probiotic to help to reset your gut biome and they have better metabolism and better communication between your liver and your gut and your brain. Turmeric to be a very good antioxidant, but also brings down inflammation. Ashwagandha root helps to bring down cortisol levels, helps to control glucose levels, and also brings down inflammation. It's very synergistic with turmeric. Omega-3 to help with your LDL, brings down LDL, increases your HDL, and it helps with preventing red blood cells from sticking too much. So omega-3 to help with your cardiovascular health. Resveratrol to get rid of senescent cells. It's also an antioxidant. You get your choice of deodorant, either peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, or citrus. It's for males and females, and it helps to detoxify the body. Your D3 to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. It's also a gene expression cofactor. And last, you get the toothpaste, the structural nanosilver toothpaste to whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, neutralize pathogens, and improve your gum line, reduce inflammation on the gum line. You get a lot of product in the anti-aging super deluxe box. So with that, let's continue on with
We just received confirmation by Hezbollah, an official statement sent by their media department to media institutions in Lebanon and around the world, and to supporters as well. I pulled up a quick translation of that initial statement in Arabic. The statement confirms the death of Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. It mourns him as a great leader. According to the statement, he has joined the eternal luminous convoy of the martyrs of Karbala. So a lot of reference to Shia doctrines, faithful path of the prophets and martyrs and imams. It also mentions how he led Hezbollah in different times. In particular, he referred to his succession to the former Secretary General of Hezbollah in 1992, throughout the period of the withdrawal of the Israeli army to southern. The statement also mentions what they called the divine victory of the 2006 war and other battles of honor and sacrifice up to the current struggle in support of Palestine, Gaza, and the oppressed Palestinian people. Again, this is the terminology used by Hezbollah and its official mourning of its Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, who was killed in an Israeli airstrike yesterday in Beirut's southern suburbs.
Does that statement mention who will replace Hassan Nasrallah as leader?
The statement does not mention any succession plans for Hassan Nasrallah and for the leadership of the organization, and it's only focused on the fact that they are mourning him as a great leader. However, one interesting paragraph in the statement is that the leadership of Hezbollah pledges to resume holiest and dearest martyr in our journey filled with sacrifices, and that Hezbollah will continue its jihad against the enemy, referring to Israel, in support of Gaza and Palestine, and in defense of Lebanon. So just a mourning statement for Secretary General of Hezbollah Hassan Nasrallah, and a pledge to continue his path. This is according to the official Hezbollah statement.
So we have Hassan Nasrallah confirmed dead by Hezbollah. We have a week of escalation. What is the mood like there in the capital, Beirut?
Still a lot of uncertainty. We're yet to hear from how their streets are going to react to this official announcement. In particular, the hundreds of thousands of the supporters of Hezbollah, who have always seen Nasrallah as a great figure that led them over the past 32 years. So we're still waiting to see any reactions possibly in the street, and also reactions from other Lebanese factions and political parties in the next few hours.
You can skip this video, but you can't skip the truth.
All right,
right now in North Gaza, children.
This is also France 24.
Joining us live now is Salah Hijazi, Chief Political Editor at the Lebanese.
Before we do that, let me do another commercial here.
So I have many different anti-aging boxes, so I'm going through each one of them so you understand what's in each. Now, there's an anti-aging structural nanosilver box that I have, and in that you get the Max 35 liquid, you get the structural nanosilver gel, you get the structural nanosilver toothpaste, okay? You get your choice of structural nanosilver soap. I have many varieties. And you also get to choose for your lozenges, Manuka honey or zinc elderberry. Probiotic. All right, the VeggieCap version is probiotic. So that's your anti-aging structural nanosilver box.
But Lorient Bonjour. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, first of all, what's your reaction to this stunning news, this new development?
This is definitely a shock here in Lebanon. It feels like everything we knew for years has just disappeared. We have been, Lebanon has been under the influence of Hezbollah now for years now, and Hassan Nasrallah was a central figure in the political spectrum as well as in strategic decisions. So the fact that he's just not here anymore feels like a shock. I think when Hezbollah announced that its leader was killed, people in the streets were screaming.
Now, Salah, this news comes after intense Israeli bombardments over southern Lebanon over the past few days. What's the situation like in Daya right now?
Dahi is currently evacuated by a lot of its citizens. A lot of people have fled yesterday night after Israel hit the alleged headquarters of Hezbollah in Harat Tahrir. After this strike, people left the neighborhood and are now displaced in downtown Beirut or in the many schools around the capital. There is a huge amount of fear and anxiety right now because Israel is continuing its carpet bombing of the suburbs of Beirut. We've had tens of buildings collapsing since yesterday in as many strikes.
Well, Salah, stay with us for the time being. Let's just bring in our foreign editor.
You know, in terms of just getting information from the Middle East, I find that, you know, some of the Indian media, France 24 is very good, BBC, just American mainstream media just seems to be either late or superficial. Even with Fox, you know, CNN has their own, you know, bent with the way they push it, but it's superficial. I feel that Times Radio, even though I disagree with some of the things that they say, a lot of the things they say, but I think that at least they have a good pulse of what's going on in there. There's not much of a lag, you know. France 24 is good. I'm you know, Al Jazeera obviously is skewed, but at least you get immediate, but you get the Arab version of the immediate, right? U.S. very poor, at least domestic U.S. news. Maybe international is a different story. I don't know, but it's that's why I kind of focus on these kinds of shows. You know, France 24 seems to be, at least they have a pulse.
Salah was just mentioning the fear and anxiety among the population in southern Lebanon. Is that what you saw as well?
Well, it is what I saw. I mean, very clearly what we saw, as a team, we saw the result of one of the big strikes in southern Lebanon, but also we actually saw the first day, if you will, the main day of Israeli airstrikes in the southern part of Lebanon. The team, we were together with Karim Yayawi and Ashraf Abid. We actually witnessed 5 Israeli airstrikes as we were basically working in Sidon, which is just the gateway to the south, if you will. On that day, they hit over 1,000 targets. So yes, there is complete terror, complete disorganization. Once again, we were at the funeral of Ibrahim Akil. We spoke to the people who were in charge of security for Hezbollah at that event, which had thousands of people basically carrying his coffin across Denye. They told us that they were worried that there might be an Israeli airstrike. So what Israel has done indeed is saw absolute terror in all these Hezbollah-controlled areas. We witnessed the people fleeing the south because indeed they've got messages. So, you know, the Israelis hacked phone systems. They managed to reach people, sending them SMSs, phone calls on landlines and cell phones as part of this strategy of saying they won't warn people before striking, which they use then afterwards, you know, when it comes to international law, saying that they indeed gave some warning. So what we saw was people fleeing, taking nearly nothing, people describing chaos in the villages in the south. One family, 15 people who had left in the same car, explaining they were attending a funeral for an unrelated death in the village, and that simply, well, the Israelis started bombing at that precise moment. Some people were lightly injured at the funeral, but then they went back to their house, discovered their house had one complete wall missing, and just leapt into the car and left. They were sleeping in a classroom in Sedan when we met them. So if you like, yes, it is complete chaos in southern Lebanon. You've got to realize that there have been over 2,000 targeted airstrikes by Israel over the past 96 hours. And of course,
The 2,000.
over 2,000, yeah, absolutely. From the northern part of the country, from Hamel, where I remember doing a report that was a few years ago, which is indeed, you know, some villages are really Hezbollah strongholds, right through the Bekaa Valley and to the south of the country. So yes, what we have is a massive, of course, aerial bombing campaign that's been taking place. And the result of that, of course, is fear. And you've got to realize that, once again, the disappearance of Hassan Nasrallah is huge news. The man has been absolutely central and pivotal for the organization and Lebanon at large for the last 30 years. So the question mark is now, what will Hezbollah do?
Well, Israel, on the other hand, has accused Hezbollah of using the civilian population as a human shield. Now, is that argument, sentiment shared among the population there?
Oh, definitely not. But if you like, the thing is, you will have two views to that story. If you take the local population, they will tell you that Israel is bombing indiscriminately and that they are killing civilians, and that they don't have a problem with that. On the other hand, the Israelis will tell you that indeed Hezbollah leadership is using these residential buildings atop their underground bases as human shields. But this is something they've been saying as well when it comes to Hamas in the Gaza Strip. But that is very much questions that will be asked, you know, when it comes to the legality of these strikes later on, if you will. I mean, it's very much a question of how much damage.
You're trying to kill their command and control. Hezbollah is not only a terrorist group, but it is a major player on the battlefield. And Israel's trying to knock out their command and control. So this is the problem with these pseudo-intellectuals that are in international affairs. War is war, and there's going to be collateral damage. And to say that knocking out the headquarters of Hezbollah, even though there may be collateral damage, that's in the purview of the IDF. I mean, this whole idea of some sort of soft war kind of concept sure as hell doesn't work in the Middle East, but it never worked anywhere in human history. So it's so dumb to even think in those terms. Crazy. I also have another anti-aging box that helps with your skin. All right, it's called the anti-aging skin health box. All right, I have a beginner's version and I have an advanced version. All right, the beginner's version is just collagen. There's amino acids in here that help to build up and strengthen up your bones and your ligaments, your tendons. All right, so it'll improve your joint health and your bone health. But not just that, it'll help with your skin and your hair. All right, taking collagen every day is important, not just for skin health, but bone, joint health, and hair. Okay, I have the amino acid profile on this is pretty extensive. Okay, and there's a big scooper, you mix it with your food. All right, and you take it every day. All right. That's basically how I do it. Some people just put it in a smoothie. Some people put it in hummus. Some people just mix it with the food. You can mix it with something that you drink, you know, water or milk or whatever. I've also done it with just mixing it with milk. So, so this is the collagen. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it is bovine. I believe it's bovine collagen. And you take a scooper of this a day. In the beginner's box, you get the vitamin C, which will help not only with your immune system, but there's a cross-linking that takes place between vitamin C and the collagen to improve your dermal layer. All right. You need to drink filtered water. The best results is throughout the day drinking about 32 to 64 ounces of filtered water. And that water, the vitamin C and the collagen will cross-link and improve the dermal layer. All right. And you get the structural nanosilver gel, which will help to improve the health of your skin. So what happens is that you use this every day. Best way to do it is for skincare is to put it on your skin at night, overnight, and then when you wake up, exfoliate. You'll notice your skin is clearer and tighter, especially around your face. You'll feel it's tighter, that the skin's tighter. All right, so this is the topical to improve the topical part of your skin, where it's the high keratin. And then the lower part, the dermal layer, it's the collagen and the vitamin C cross-linking with water. Okay, so this is the beginner's box for the skin health box. Now the advanced version box, the anti-aging skin health advanced box, you get also the collagen, the vitamin C, and the structural nanosilver gel, and you get 2 other supplements. You get resveratrol, which will help to get rid of senescent cells in your skin, to get rid of those senescent cells and to help promote cellular division for the basal layer and to improve the health of the basal layer, because this is getting rid of senescent cells, right? Because senescent cells stop dividing, all right, and build up toxins, and they're not as robust cells. So it's getting rid of those bad cells. But not just that, it's an antioxidant, and it's improving the basal layer where new skin cells are starting to generate, okay? And you get the C60, and you can choose from coconut, avocado, or extra virgin olive oil. And you take a teaspoon of this a day. And the C60 is a very strong antioxidant that also is synergistic with the resveratrol. Resveratrol will get rid of the senescent cells. It's an antioxidant, helps to improve the mitochondrial health. All right. This will soak up those free radicals also, but it's much more potent. Improve the mitochondrial health where the ATP will increase, right? And less cellular stress, so the basal layer is going to be more healthy. So these 2 focus on the basal layer. The vitamin C and the collagen with the filtered water cross-link and improve the dermal layer. So the dermal layer is healthier. And the topical layer is improved by the structural nanosilver gel. So that's the advanced box, the anti-aging health advanced box. Okay, what do I phrase it? Anti-aging skin health advanced box. All right, so you get some really good stuff, all right, in this box to help to improve. But the key is that you should be drinking filtered water. Drink about 32 to 64 ounces throughout the day. Now, some people can't drink 64 ounces, it's too much for them. But that filtered water is important for that cross-linking to improve the dermal layer with the collagen and the vitamin C cross-links. All right. And when you do that for about a month or so, you're going to start noticing that your skin and your hair are improved, even your nails. But
you're also going to be improving your bones and your joints at the same time. So it's a dual purpose. So please go to my store and get the anti-aging skin health advanced box or even the beginner's box. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Lateral damage, call it what you will, how many civilian people can die for a military objective. You know, the international law is complex when it comes to that. It states that you have to avoid to inflict unnecessary suffering to civilian populations. Define that. So, you know, obviously this is going to be two sides of the same story. In the same way we've been seeing strikes on, you know, with secondary blasts. The Israelis will tell you that that was because it was a weapons depot of Hezbollah. Hezbollah supporters will tell you that's because it was close to a petrol station. The petrol station blew up. That is, I would say, basically the fog of war, and that is very much the same situation when it comes to these strikes on military targets, which are in the vicinity of civilian infrastructure. But the fact of the matter is, yes, there has been extensive damage. A very large number of civilians, including women and children, have been killed in these various strikes in the southern suburbs of Beirut, which are densely populated. I mean, we were there, we saw it, and we saw the kind of damage. The building, Ismail Aki was holding this high-level meeting with, it is believed, 10 other leaders of the branch of Hezbollah, had collapsed totally. There was strictly nothing left of it. I saw that. There was rubble. So, of course, you know, we still don't have the death toll of yesterday evening's strike, but you can expect it to be very high indeed.
Now, let's cross back to Lebanon to speak with Salah Hijazi, Chief Political Editor at the Lebanese newspaper L'Orient du Jour. Salah, we've been speaking with James about how the relationship between the general public and Hezbollah, what has been historically? Can you go back to tell us more about the relationship between the militant group and the Lebanese population?
Hezbollah is definitely a popular group here in Lebanon, especially among the Shia community. Hezbollah is perceived as the liberator of 2000 when the Israelis retreated from South Lebanon, and also as it is perceived as the author of the victory of 2006, after the July War.
So what can we expect from now on?
I think right now there is a lot of confusion amongst the popular base of the party, especially that we don't know the fate of either Naim Qassem, who is the deputy of Hassan Nasrallah, or Hashim Safi, who is his designated successor. So there's a lot of uncertainty going on about their fate, and I'd say that most Hezbollah supporters are now living in a dual crisis. The first is the loss of their leader, whom they perceive as a very popular, very charismatic person that contributed to several milestones in their history, and the fact that they don't know who will succeed.
Now, so there is a lot of uncertainty, but certainly people aren't expecting that this would be a decisive blow to end Hezbollah as a militant group then?
You know, actually, in Lebanon in particular, the killing of sectarian and political leaders has historically impacted political dynamics. The assassination of Bashir al-Mayyad in 1982 marks in many ways the end of Maronite supremacy in the country. The killing of Rafi Haye in 2005 also marks a turning point for Sunni influence in the country. But at the same time, unlike other political parties, Hezbollah is a very institutionalized party. So there are these. So one might say that the assassination of its Secretary General does not mean the end of the group. We still really don't know which of these two dynamics will succeed or will unfold.
And where is the Lebanese government in all this? What's the role? I mean, Lebanon's regular army, what role does it have in this conflict?
Lebanon's state is a rather weak state, especially now since Lebanon does not have a president. The government is the government now is expediting current affairs. So by its nature, Lebanon is weak, and these two circumstances are adding to this weakness. The Prime Minister is now focusing on diplomatic contacts to avoid even further escalation, but that's pretty much all it can do. As for the army, it is trying to manage as much as possible the flow of displaced people.
Well, Salah Hijazi speaking to us from Lebanon. Thank you so much for your insight.
Okay, so now what I would like to do is go into Al Jazeera. They're playing live here. They're showing some archive footage.
There's a political party that's shaped.
Showing some archive footage of the Hezbollah leader that was killed. Now, before we do that, I also have an anti-Fauci box. And in the anti-Fauci box, I actually have 3 versions. But in the anti-Fauci box, it is the Max 35, so the structural nanosilver liquids. You have the magnesium and zinc to help to boost up your immune system. You get the vitamin D3, which is a gene expression cofactor, helps to absorb calcium and get cells that are infected to go into apoptosis. Turmeric, which is an antioxidant and also brings down inflammation to help with your immune system. And ashwagandha, that brings down cortisol levels, helps to control glucose levels, and brings down that inflammatory response, and it works really well together with turmeric. So that's the anti-Fauci box, the first version. Again, it's the Max 35, the magnesium and zinc, the vitamin D3, the turmeric, and the ashwagandha. So let's go into Al Jazeera and see what they have to say here before I play Netanyahu's speech.
For Netanyahu, for the intelligence, it restored their faith, the Israeli public faith in the apparatus and so on. There's no doubt about this. But long term, I don't think it's a victory. I don't think they are really going to address any of the underlying issues they have with the Palestinians or with the Israelis by taking out Nasrallah. The same group, the same community that produced Nasrallah will produce another Nasrallah. The difficulty I was saying is that the tactics may not be as predictable as they have been by Nasrallah or as controllable as they have been over the last few years by Iran and others. Now they can go worldwide. They can attack Israel all over the world. They can do a different type of operations. It will be, I think, more moved or motivated by emotion, by feelings, and the need to revenge rather than the strategic balance of power that Iran and the US are playing one against the other.
Sultan Barak, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Still ahead on Al Jazeera, we're going to have continuing coverage of the massive Israeli strikes on Beirut's southern suburbs, which have left parts of the city burning for hours. We've just seen an explosion in the last couple of hours or so. These are live pictures of the latest blast.
All right, so while they're doing a commercial, what I'm going to do is the second box, this anti-Fauci advanced box, is the Max 35 structural nanosilver liquid. Take a teaspoon a day. You get the magnesium and zinc to help boost up your immune system. You get the D3 to get cells to go into apoptosis, and it's great as a cofactor for gene expression. Turmeric, bring down inflammation as an antioxidant. Ashwagandha root, control blood glucose levels and cortisol levels, also bring down that inflammatory response. And C60, you can choose either MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. C60 is a very strong molecule, all right, that soaks up those free radicals. That's important because you want to maintain cellular health and reduce the stress in the cell. So you need to soak up those free radicals. It'll also boost up your mitochondrial health, so you'll have more ATP. That will help with your immune system and just overall cell and tissue health. Very important. This is, and you should be taking a teaspoon of this a day. But you get the C60, your choice of version, in the anti-Fauci advanced box. Now, in the deluxe box, the anti-Fauci deluxe box, all right, you also get omega-3, digestive enzymes, and lignans. Okay. All right. So in the last anti-aging box that I have, which is the anti-Fauci advanced box, you get the Max 35, magnesium and zinc to help boost up your immune system, D3, turmeric and ashwagandha, your choice of C60, avocado, coconut, or extra virgin olive oil. You should be taking a teaspoon of it a day. Lignans to help to boost up the immune system and to help with your endocrine system. All right. This is a powder. You would take it every day, mix it with food or with water. And what it does is it's an antioxidant and it helps to bring down inflammation. Digestive enzymes to help to absorb carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. But in this are enzymes that are proteolytic and fibrinolytic. That means that it'll help to break down glycoproteins, very important, especially when, during the cold season. And it's also fibrinolytic, which will help to break up clots. So digestive enzyme complex is multi-purposed, helps with digestion, reduces the stress on your pancreas, but also breaks up glycoproteins and is fibrinolytic. And lastly, you get the omega-3 that helps to bring down your LDL, raises your HDL, so it's improving your lipid profile, and it helps with keeping the red blood cells from sticking. So that means you're reducing the chances of overclotting. Again, what's in the anti-Fauci advanced box, the anti-Fauci deluxe box is Max 35, magnesium and zinc, D3, ashwagandha, turmeric, C60, your choice of version of the oil, because C60 is lipid soluble, lignans, digestive enzymes, very important for fibrinolytic and proteolytic capability, and omega-3 that helps to get those red blood cells from sticking too much. Right? It prevents the overclotting and it improves your lipid profile. So it's dual purpose. So you get a pretty extensive package for the anti-Fauci deluxe box. So with that said, let's go back to Al Jazeera.
Imran, thank you very much indeed. That's Imran Khan bringing us up to date from Oshayoun in southern Lebanon. Well, Israel's military says it's conducted dozens of airstrikes in the Bekaa Valley. It says it's targeted Hezbollah weapons storage facilities and missile launch sites. Footage shared on social media shows a deep crater in the ground after one strike in the town of Beit Hamdoun. We speak to Asad Bey. He's in the Bekaa Valley in eastern Lebanon. Talk to us about the kind of attacks that have been happening over the last few hours and why particularly Israel's military should decide that they're going to hit there.
Well, Israel's military have decided to hit Bekaa Valley because many parts here are Hezbollah strongholds. Bekaa Valley is between Lebanon's eastern mountain range and West Mountain. It's a valley to the east of me. Over that mountain range is Syria, where Israel believes on many routes where Hezbollah uses to get shipments of weapons through. Also, what they believe is that there are strongholds within Bekaa Valley that Hezbollah uses to store weapons. So Israel has been conducting airstrikes up and down Bekaa Valley. Now, early on this morning, there was aircraft overhead. We heard it. We heard the strikes taking place, and the shockwaves hit the buildings. And it's around 3 kilometers from where I am. The Israelis hit the village of and Hazarta, but they've also hit the road to Syria. Now, they've hit that a number of times, again, trying to disrupt what they believe are the supply routes for Hezbollah. But the towns of Karak, Hazarta, Riyaq, Tanya, so many towns have been hit throughout today. And when you speak to people here, there's a real concern. Generally, the conflict has been confined to the south, and we've seen those strikes take place in Beirut. But as Bekaa Valley has now been targeted by the Israelis, what they have described as intense airstrikes, more and more people are getting displaced from within the Bekaa Valley to other parts of the Bekaa Valley, and other people are going elsewhere in Lebanon. And the reality is many people just don't know what would be hit next or when.
That's it. Thank you very much indeed. That's Asad talking to us from the Bekaa Valley. Well, of course, Israel's attacks on Gaza are continuing. Tarek will zoom live for us outside the Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. First of all, the reaction to the killing of Hassan Nasrallah.
Well, I'll start quickly with what the Hamas movement said. In fact, they said in an official statement that they are sharing their sincere condolences and solidarity with the Lebanese brother, alongside with the Hezbollah Lebanese organization. They said literally that we condemn in the strongest terms this barbaric Zionist aggression on the targeting of residential building in the southern suburb of Beirut, and they consider this as an act of terrorism.
They had a bunker underneath the building that was the headquarters for Hezbollah, where their leader lives. Let's stop playing the game of this residential stuff. You know, they hide within the population, and Israel knows where they're at, and they're hunting. Israel's hunting them down. And you have this type of, even though I like watching Al Jazeera, but it's biased. But they keep on playing this game that it's okay to hide in the civilian population. And oh, by the way, you know what's really interesting? The Lebanese people don't like Hezbollah too much. Unfortunately, they don't fight against them. You know, probably because Hezbollah is pretty strong in the country and they're afraid. But if the Lebanese people at large ask for the international community, please help us root out Hezbollah, the international community, this whole dynamic would change. But they don't do that. Now, probably because a big part of the population is afraid to do it. Let's stop pretending on what's really going on.
Hamas, in fact, has said, alongside what in speaking to people here in Gaza, they are saying that the step taken by the Israeli side to assassinate Hezbollah top leader is a game-changing step, because they believe that it will trigger huge retaliation from Hezbollah, but it's still unclear how and when Hezbollah will retaliate against that very barbaric attack on the Lebanese sovereignty. And at the same time, they also understand that this step will have more repercussions on Gaza, specifically that the Israeli Prime Minister is still taking more offensive measures on Lebanon, and that will in turn lead to a full kinds of delay for any potential ceasefire or at least mediation efforts led by regional mediators to de-escalate the situation. And families here, as we have been talking to them, they say that Netanyahu sees this as a golden opportunity to deliver the battle into another front for multiple purposes, to gain a political future, to delay the return of the Israeli hostages, and to change the new the shape of the Middle East on the ground as we are heading for more tense days down the road.
Meanwhile, as we were talking about, the Israeli war on Gaza does continue. Tarek, talk to us about the latest strikes there.
Well, the Gaza Strip since the early hours of this morning has been under really heavy Israeli fires by their fighter jets and artillery units. The vast majority of the sites were hit today where civilians were talking about. A vast majority of residential homes were completely did not receive any sort of warning. 10 Palestinians since dawn today were killed amid ongoing destruction and infiltration for residential homes in the Azaytun neighborhood, alongside with the northern portion of Anusawat refugee camp. The situation on the ground looks like the following. Israel is still keeping a very intense and tight military control over the Gaza Strip by the two main linking corridors in Gaza, Netzarim and Philadelphia. There is no any sort of aid flow to the Strip. Families have been trapped in the middle of the Gaza Strip. And more reports, Israeli reports saying that the Israeli military now is discussing a plan presented by its top generals to empty the northern part of Gaza from its original citizens. That could be a very dangerous step, could be taken within the coming months, especially that Israel now is taking Lebanon as a clear distraction to cover its heinous crimes here inside the Strip.
Tarek Abos, live outside Al-Aqsa Hospital, there about thank you. Well, James Elders, the global spokesperson for UNICEF, it's the United Nations Children's Fund.
Before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAC supplement that I have. It's a new product. It's a product that I am taking daily. And the reason why I added to my protocol is that NAC brings up your glutathione levels. So it's another pathway to soak up free radicals, which is really important to slowing down the aging process and improve your immune system. So NAC, all right, will bring up your glutathione levels, soak up those free radicals. It also helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney. And it helps to improve mental health, all right? It calms down individuals that have anxiety. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get NAC. It's a great supplement to improve that whole anti-aging protocol. It's synergistic with C60. It's synergistic with NAD+, and ubiquinol. And since we're talking about ubiquinol, ubiquinol is the active form for CoQ10. I've been taking ubiquinol for many years, all right? Now I have it on my store. So please go to my store and get the ubiquinol. It's the active form for CoQ10. It's an antioxidant. It helps with improving energy levels, and it also helps for neuroprotection. So it improves your neurons. As we get older, we need to take supplements that help to improve our neurons, so our thinking, our cognitive function is maintained. So please go to the store and take the ubiquinol. And again, it's not just supplementation, it's also proper diet and exercise. You need to move around. You need to build a little muscle. You need to do a little bit of cardiovascular training. You need to improve your diet, take supplements, and exercise your brain. Read, write, and talk to people. Do some balancing exercises. Balancing exercises isn't just to help you balance, but it's also stimulating your neurons. It's helping for your brain health and your cerebellum. So it's really important. And to maintain the health of those neurons, ubiquinol is really important to take on a regular basis. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take ubiquinol. It's the active form for CoQ10. Take it every day. NAD+ helps to bring up your energy levels, all right? In addition, it helps the repair mechanism for DNA damage. So if you get DNA damage, we have repair mechanisms for that. But as we get older, we have more DNA damage that accumulates, and it's harder for the body to be able to repair that DNA damage. You need to take supplements to help the repair mechanism. So please take the NAD+ to help with DNA repair and to bring up your energy levels. And again, this also helps with neuroprotection. So it's synergistic with ubiquinol. Nattokinase. This will help to reduce clotting because it's fibrinolytic, but it also will bring down your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. Take nattokinase on a daily basis to improve your cardiovascular health. I take nattokinase every day. And it's synergistic with the digestive enzyme complex. Why? Because there are other proteolytic and fibrinolytic enzymes in the digestive enzyme complex that I offer on my store, on top of the natto kinase. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the anti-aging boxes, get the skincare boxes, get the anti-Fauci boxes, get the individual supplements. I offer lots of supplements in a different variety of ways on how you can stack it to meet your specific needs.
He says the humanitarian situation in Gaza is becoming more and more acute.
No one needs what is going on right now, but of course the people of Lebanon have already dealt with the financial crisis. They dealt with the massive explosion of a few years ago. They have seen poverty rates skyrocketing. Yeah, the people of Lebanon have made it very, very clear that they simply need peace, like all the people across this region, to be perfectly honest. So in those early days this week when we saw at least 50 children killed, I think the great fear is that we're seeing an escalation, and everybody knows it's impossible to disentangle these two crises. It's also impossible to disentangle the thinking behind those people who are waging this war. But surely, you know, any ceasefire, any significant humanitarian pause here in Gaza for these very long-suffering people of Gaza is going to help de-escalate that situation, and that's essential right now. I think it should have been clear for people for a long, long time. Certainly it's been clear for humanitarians. Certainly it's clear to Palestinians that there is no military solution to this. There never has been. You know, peace in the Middle East for the children here in Gaza, for Lebanon, for Israel, is not going to be brought about by the bombing of Beirut. It's not going to be brought about by the killing of so many children or the devastation of hospitals. It's going to be a political solution. And that's the sooner we move to that, the sooner we end some of this horrendous suffering on mums, on dads, and on children.
Kalajaber is a former correspondent for the Sunday Times and author of Hezbollah, Born with a Vengeance. She joins us now from Beirut. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. What's your assessment of the impact that the killing of Hassan Nasrallah is going to have on Hezbollah?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. I mean, obviously, the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah is a huge thing for Hezbollah and for Lebanon, and obviously for his community. However, and it will be
his
painful.
community are terrorists.
There is going to be grief. There's going to be sadness. There's going to be emptiness because this leader has been on this journey with his.
There's going to be jubilation within the Lebanese people in many pockets of Lebanon. And there's going to be jubilation in other regions of the Middle East because most of the countries in that region doesn't want Hezbollah, Hamas, and this terroristic regime out of Iran. In addition, there's going to be jubilation in Israel. And there's probably jubilation in the United States.
For 32 years, no small feat. There's a generation that grew up with him. There's a generation that was born and knew him right from the beginning. They listened to him. They supported him. He gave them hope. He gave them a voice. He gave them strength. He gave them freedom from an occupation. So the loss is big. But the resistance and Hezbollah is not just based on one man. The end of a man or the assassination of a man.
She's pro-terrorist.
Does not end the resistance. If anything, the resistance continues. Hezbollah will pick itself up. It will have new leaders, new commanders, and will continue the journey. Israel believes that by killing Sayyid Nasrallah and his colleagues and other commanders that were with him, that we still haven't heard of their names yet, but they will be coming out, I'm sure. But that's the end of this organization. But history and president has shown us that when one leader goes, another steps in. If they believe that this is the end of Hezbollah, I think they've got another thing coming. Usually, the new leadership is more fierce, more determined.
So if they're more determined and they're not going to step down, don't you think that the Israelis need to go in with a land invasion and probably implement drone warfare to try to learn the lessons from the previous war in 2006 and how the Israelis failed in 2006? Actually, I know someone that was actually in that war. but all right, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. This removes heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. We have forever chemicals that are in our water, in our clothing, in our food, in the air we breathe, in the cooking ware that we use. And it's important to remove those toxins and chemicals and heavy metals, all right? Including forever chemicals like PFAS and PFAS. So please go to my store and get the zeolite. It's a negatively charged molecule that will soak up positively charged heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. Take a few drops underneath your tongue, detoxify, maybe once or twice a year, by just a few drops underneath your tongue and use the whole bottle. Some people take just a couple drops all year round as a maintenance. It's up to you. But the zeolite you can take year round, daily. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. If you're on medication, you need to talk to your doctor before you take zeolite, because you don't want zeolite to soak up your medication and lower your dosage. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get those forever chemicals out of your body, and stop ingesting those forever chemicals the best that you can. The way to do it is stop eating processed foods and filter your water. That's the best way. And you're minimizing the exposure. And then whatever you do have, you can try to get out of your body the best that you can with zeolite and other detoxing methods. All right. But zeolite will help with that detoxification of your body. And what happens is that once you start to detox, then you're going to have better joint health. You'll be surprised that how these forever chemicals will accumulate in your joint and toxins will accumulate in your joints. You'll improve with your endocrine system and your immune system. So please go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. In addition, I also have, we talked earlier about probiotics. I have two different probiotics. I have the veggie cap version, and I also have the powdered version. There's a scooper in here. You mix it with your food or with water. This is the version that I typically take every day, but I do take the veggie cap, especially if I'm on vacation or whatever, traveling. It's just easier to use. But either way, they're very high quality probiotics. You should be taking a probiotic every day. What it does is it helps to populate your gut with the proper gut biome. That will improve your metabolism and the communication between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain. You can reduce chances of depression, and you'll have better mental acuity with a good gut biome. A good gut biome will also improve your skin and your hair and your nails. All right. You can see the manifestation of a poor gut in your skin. All right. So in addition, when you take a probiotic, a good probiotic on a regular basis, you're bringing down that chronic inflammation at the inner lining level of your gut. All right. And when you're bringing down that inflammation, that means the mucosal barrier is improved. You need a good mucosal barrier so you don't get sick. But not just that, you're reducing the chances of cellular mutations that may lead to cancers. So it's really important. A good gut biome is going to radically change your health. All right. In a good way. So please stop eating processed foods, filter your water, and take a great probiotic like the ones that I have on my store. I have a veggie cap version and I also have a powder version. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and move forward and improve the health of your family. It can be done. You can do this. It is in your power.
More ferocious. We saw this in the past after they assassinated Sayyid Musawi and Abbas Musawi, and Sayyid Nasrallah took over. The group was not yet as it is today. He led it, he reformed it, he evolved it, he matured it, and he brought it to where it is today, a formidable organization, and one that is envied by a lot of other groups around the world. One they look up to and they emulate in many ways. So what I want to say here is basically that even though it's a bit of a shock, the journey continues and the resistance will continue.
Well, she sounds pro.
If anything, it will move.
She sounds pro Hezbollah.
I want to ask you, because there's obviously a lot of speculation about how Iran is going to respond to this and whether or not it's going to play a role in trying to influence Hezbollah. Describe to us, if you could, what your understanding is of the kind of relationship that there is between Iran and Hezbollah. There was a suggestion from one of our previous guests that with the introduction of a new leadership, it may well be that Hezbollah begins to, if it isn't doing it already, distance itself, if you like, separate the strands between it and Iran. And of course, that would give Iran less leverage over Hezbollah, but would allow Hezbollah to work more independently.
Yes, I heard you. I heard the previous speaker, and while I agreed with him on many things, I think there was on this particular point I did not necessarily agree with. You see, there's this tendency to suggest or describe Hezbollah and the Axis as proxies of Iran, and that is not totally true. I mean,
they get their funding from Iran.
It's an ally. Iran sees it as an ally, and Hezbollah sees itself as an ally. Yes, an important ally for Iran, obviously. There's no question. The fact that Hezbollah is where it is as a result of Iranian support, aid, and we're talking here from finances to technology to military to know-how to training, all sorts of things. So the premise that Hezbollah in the last year, for example, as the speaker was saying, had to restrain itself as a result of Iran and because of regional war is not necessarily 100% correct. This war is not just about Iran and regional war.
I am sorry to interrupt you.
It was a support
I am sorry to interrupt you. I apologize. It's Hala Jabbar, is a former correspondent for the Sunday Times, and we are grateful to you for being with us. Thank you very much indeed.
All right. Okay, so that's Al Jazeera. Let's this is ABC News on Netanyahu's speech at the UN. And then I'll conclude after this. This is 34 minutes long, so let's play this. I haven't heard it at all.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't intend to come here this year. My country is at war, fighting for its life. But after I heard the lies and slanders leveled at my country by many of the speakers at this podium, I decided to come here and set the record straight. I decided to come here to speak for my people, to speak for my country, to speak for the truth. And here's the truth.
All right. Hey, all right. This is my perspective just in the last couple, I don't know, what is the first minute of the video. Before he starts speaking, there were many delegates that from the UN left the room. So the room had a lot of empty seats. I don't know what the percentage was, but a lot of people left. All right. Now, the ones that are staying there, you know, obviously are going to be a little bit more pro-Israel or pro-war on terrorism. All right, than ones that are not, because the ones that are not have left the room. Another very unique, I think, perspective that I bring to the table here with this whole incident with Netanyahu and the delegates that left the room at the UN is that shortly after this, the bombings in Beirut happened. I believe he spoke first, and then the bombings took place. Okay, to kill the leader of Hezbollah. What is interesting here, from a Kabbalistic point of view, all right, is that remember what I said about Esau. The soul root of Esau is battling the soul root of Jacob. Ishmael is going to be aligning with Jacob, and that Esau will split into what I call Esau negative and Esau positive, and it's polarized, and that through that polarization, that's why I use positive and negative. But that polarization, Esau positive is going to move towards Jacob. All right, and Esau negative is going to continue to battle Jacob and die. Now, Esau negative is not just in the Middle East, it's not just the terrorists, but also the nations, the Western nations of the world have a certain percentage of their soul root from Jacob and Esau. And so the Esau part of that country's soul root is going to split. All right. Now, how much it splits depends. Now, the ones that split more to the negative most likely have very little Jacob soul root. The ones that have a lot of Jacob, most likely the soul root that splits will have a lot of Esau positive that splits to align with Jacob. The United States falls into this category where it has a lot of Jacob, and it has a soul root from Esau, but that Esau will split and align with Jacob. The ones that stay Esau negative are going to be problematic in the society, and it will be very self-evident through the way they posture in politics and the way they posture with protesting. All right, so we're going to be moving towards, as this split is taking place, we're going to be seeing more disruption with protests. Now, don't be mistaken. Don't fall into the trap that just because a protest is not talking about what's going on in the Middle East or what's going on, with global terrorism or whatever, and they're just focusing on something else, like, let's say, Black Lives Matter, all right, or some other this whole climate change push, these protests, where they're ultra left, all right, agendas. Their soul roots are tied to Esau negative. All right, so don't fall into the trap that if you see protests that start to arise, especially after Rosh Hashanah of this year, which is happening on October 2nd. But I suspect that what's going to happen is, as Israel starts to gain more momentum on the battlefield against Hezbollah, that means in the Syrian, Iraqi, and Lebanese theater, that we're going to see more protests, anti-Semitism, pro-Palestinian, but it's going to morph. There's going to be this kind of pro-climate agenda. There's going to be this Black Lives Matter and reparations push, especially if Trump wins the election. So there's going to be tumult that is going to be taking place in Western countries, especially in the United States. So don't make don't make the mistake that this is just a Middle Eastern thing with the soul root splitting for Esau. All right. And the composition for individuals and nations are different. So some people may have a mixture of a soul root, and when they split, you know, and if it moves more to the negative, then they're obviously, you know, they're not going to be aligned with Jacob. All right. But the nation they're in may go the opposite way. The nation they're in may actually soul root split for majority of the population and be more aligned with Jacob, and vice versa. So there's individual dynamics and there are Kabbalistic nation dynamics, because nation soul roots and there are individual soul roots, and they don't necessarily coincide. They could, but it's not required. All right. So, you know, keep this in mind. I know this sounds really strange. It's not tied into Western philosophy. All right. But there are deep Kabbalistic texts that explain this. All right. For a long time. So this is not something I'm making up. This has been out there in Kabbalistic texts about soul root splitting and this battle, you know, at near the end, you know, with Jacob and Esau. All right. But Esau is allowed to do repentance and split away from the negative and align with the positive to be able to, to battle bad, battle evil. All right. And I think that's what's happening right now. So getting back to the UN, we saw a fit. Sometimes you have to see a physical manifestation of it that may seem benign if you just use a Western lens of philosophy. But if you use a Kabbalistic lens, you might see actually a metaphysical event that just took place. So those people that were leaving the actual UN General Assembly lecture hall area, those ones that were leaving, you saw the physical manifestation of the split of Esau. The ones that left are the negative Esau. The ones that stayed are the positive Esau. And then the ones that stayed also have a high composition of Jacob or Ishmael.
Peace. Israel yearns for peace. Israel has made peace and will make peace again. Yet we face savage enemies who seek our annihilation, and we must defend ourselves against these savage murderers. Our enemies seek not only to destroy us, they seek to destroy our common civilization and return all of us to a dark age of tyranny and terror. When I spoke here last year, I said we face the same timeless choice that Moses put before the people of Israel thousands of years ago. As we were about to enter the promised land, Moses told us that our actions will determine whether we bequeath to future generations a blessing or a curse. And that is the choice we face today. The curse of Iran's unremitting aggression, or the blessing of a historic reconciliation between Arab and Jew. In the days that followed that speech, the blessing I spoke of came into sharper focus. A normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel seemed closer than ever. But then came the curse of October 7th. Thousands of Iranian-backed Hamas terrorists from Gaza burst into Israel in pickup trucks, on motorcycles, and they committed unimaginable atrocities. They savagely murdered 1,200 people. They raped and mutilated women. They beheaded men. They burned babies alive. They burned entire families alive, babies, children, parents, grandparents, in scenes reminiscent of the Nazi Holocaust. Hamas kidnapped 251 people from dozens of different countries.
But we have to be honest that the IDF has caused some war crimes, you know, with the prisoners and potentially even on the battlefield, but all war has war crimes. All right. I would say that there are more war crimes on the side of Hamas and Hezbollah than with the IDF. But, you know, Israel isn't lily white. But I'll tell you, Israel is hunting, and Israel is going to get the deer. No doubt about it. They are going to hunt, and they are going to catch and kill the deer.
Dragging them into the dungeons of Gaza. Israel has brought home 154 of these hostages, including 117 who returned alive. I want to assure you, we will not rest until the remaining hostages are brought home too. And some of their family members are here with us today. I ask you to stand up. With us is Ellie Stevie, whose son Dan was abducted from the Nova Music Festival. That was his crime. A music festival.
Now think about this. Well, you know, there's a couple things that are going on with the dynamic of the speech that are Kabbalistic. All right. One is that you have the family members of the, the family members that are tied to the hostages. All right. The ones that left the room. This is why I keep on saying about the whole Jacob split, not Jacob, Esau splitting, positive and negative. The ones that left the room, they're not understanding this whole hostage dynamic. All right. So they're basically, the ones that left the room basically said, the hostages, it's okay to have. It's okay to do this hostage thing. That's at a metaphysical level. That's what the people that left the room did. Instead of being in the room and saying, you know what, this whole hostage thing that took place on October 7th was wrong and it needs to be rectified. So the delegates should have been doing their job as, as ambassadors to the UN and delegates to the UN and sit in the room and listen to each other instead of just walking out. All right. I think that any country that walks out the room when someone's talking, even if they're your enemy, I think it's just wrong. That's my take on it. But the ones that walked out of the room, which are this Esau negative split of the soul root, they're basically saying it's okay to have hostages. It's okay for these families to be enduring this hell. All right. That's the interpretation, I think. Now, there was something that Netanyahu said that I wanted to go against, so I forgot what it was exactly. I mean, just
monsters took custody, and some of their family members are here with us today. I ask you to stand up. With us is Ellie Stevie, whose son Dan was abducted from the Nova Music Festival. That was his crime. A music festival.
No. All right. Okay. So with this whole, at the Kabbalistic level here, this is where Netanyahu gets it wrong. All right. Most of the people that were killed, not all, but most of the people that were killed on October 7th by the attack by Hamas were liberal Jews. And there was a liberal movement in Israel during the High Holy Days, during Yom Kippur, where they breached the doors of some shuls, some synagogues, and started to defile the service. All right. Yom Kippur happens before Simchas Torah. So it's Rosh Hashanah, 10 days, Yom Kippur, and then there's a little bit of a gap, and then all of a sudden there's Sukkot, and then Simchas Torah. October 7th happened on Simchas Torah. So these liberal Jews that were at this dance festival were tied tangentially or directly to this whole liberal movement of defiling the Orthodox religion in Israel. This is part of the reason why it happened. That's why I said that there's a curse and a blessing that's happening in Israel. And it's very complicated. And anyone that thinks that they can just kind of like broad brush the situation of what's going on with the Palestinians and Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and Lebanon and the Israelis, the Orthodox side and the super liberal side, it's pretty complex, all right? But metaphysically, the liberal Jew was being cursed by God through the hands of Hamas. That's what really happened at a metaphysical level. Now, some people may not want to hear that, but that's what happened. The same thing. The actions of the terrorists are being killed off through the tool of the IDF, through the hands of God. But it's happening on both sides. So that's the metaphysical of what was happening with that whole dance festival during Simchas Torah. All right, that dance festival were liberal Jews that were against Orthodoxy. The far majority of them.
And these murderous monsters took him. Kobe Smirnov, whose son Jonathan was murdered, and his corpse was taken into the dungeons, into the terror tunnels of Gaza. A corpse held hostage. Salim al-Atrash, whose brother Muhammad, a brave Arab Israeli soldier, was murdered. His body too was taken to Gaza. And so was the body of Ifat Hyman's daughter in Bar, who was brutally murdered at that same music festival. With us is Sharon Sharabi, whose brother Yossi was murdered, and who prays for his older brother Eli, who is still held hostage in Gaza. And with us too is Izhar Lifsich from Kibbutz Nir Oz, a kibbutz that was wiped out by the terrorists. Thankfully, we achieved the release of his mother Yocheved, but his father Oded is still languishing in an underground terrorist hell of Hamas. I again promise you, we will return your loved ones home. We will not spare that effort until this holy mission is accomplished.
Wasn't it a holy mission for the Blues Brothers?
Your team comes to work, gets started, and disappears into 100 apps, each with their own greedy little text boxes. Except Pam, because Pam...
Ladies and gentlemen, the curse of October 7th began when Hamas invaded Israel from Gaza. But it didn't end there. Israel was soon forced to defend itself on 6 more war fronts organized by Iran. On October 8th, Hezbollah attacked us from Lebanon. Since then, they fired over 8,000 rockets at our towns and cities, at our civilians, at our children. 2 weeks later, the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen launched drones and missiles at Israel. The first of 250 such attacks, including one yesterday aimed at Tel Aviv. Iran's Shiite militias in Syria and Iraq have targeted Israel dozens of times over the past year as well. Fueled by Iran, Palestinian terrorists in Judea and Samaria perpetrated scores of attacks there and throughout Israel. And last April, for the first time ever, Iran directly attacked Israel from its own territory, firing 300 drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles at us. I have a message for the tyrants of Tehran. If you strike us, we will strike you. There is no place There is no place in Iran.
Israel needs to take out the theocracy from Iran and allow for a democracy to flourish. They need to destroy their nuclear capability so the whole world will be more safe. All right. What I'm worried about is that Netanyahu won't get the job done. One, because maybe he's afraid, and two, because the United States has a tendency to tie Israel's hands when it needs to kill terrorists.
That the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East. Far from being lambs led to the slaughter, Israel's soldiers have fought back with incredible courage and with heroic sacrifice. And I have another message for this assembly and for the world outside this hall. We are winning.
Now, my understanding is that speech was before the actual bombing of Beirut and the killing of the leader of Hezbollah. I'm pretty sure, when you look at the data, he is winning. Now, it's not clean. It's not a clean win, but he's winning.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Israel defends itself against Iran in the Seven-Front War, the line separating the blessing and the curse could not be more clear.
You see that?
This is the map.
See that? See, I've been saying this since October 7th, the blessing and the curse on all nations and all peoples. And that people need to align themselves correctly, improve their life, and see where the whole world can go to for peace and prosperity for all people, right? But we're all at fault. We're all getting cursed, and some people are going to be blessed in the process too, right? But there is this blessing and curse that's happened, and it going just microcosm it to just Israel, the Israel people. You have this ultra left that's defiling the Orthodox religion by going in and desecrating the actual service of Yom Kippur, Judgment Day. I mean, that's the worst possible thing you could do, and they did it. And don't be surprised that ultra liberals get shot up on October 7th by terrorists. Why would God want to? God sees these types of people desecrating the most holy day of the year. And why would God come in and intervene and try to save them? Come on.
Here last year. It's a map of a blessing. It shows Israel and its Arab partners forming a land bridge connecting Asia and Europe between the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. Across this bridge, we will lay rail lines, energy pipelines, fiber optic cables, and this will serve the betterment of 2 billion people.
This is the point that I'm making, that it's not going to be, the future is not Asia. The future is going to be the Middle East in the long game. But the thing is that there's lots of volatility in that region that needs to settle down. And this is why the war is happening. And what you're seeing in that picture is the alignment between Jacob, positive Esau, and Ishmael.
Yeah. It's a map. Look at the second map. It's a map of a curse. It's a map of an arc of terror that Iran has created and imposed from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean. Iran's malignant arc has shut down international waterways. It cuts off trade. it destroys millions, destroys nations from within, and inflicts misery on millions. On the one hand, a bright blessing, a future of hope. On the other hand, a dark future of despair. And if you think this dark map is only a curse for Israel, if you think that, then you should think again. Because Iran's aggression, if it's not checked, will endanger every single country in the Middle East and many, many countries in the rest of the world. Because Iran seeks to impose its radicalism well beyond the Middle East. That's why it funds terror networks on 5 continents. That's why it builds ballistic missiles for nuclear warheads to threaten the entire world. For too long, the world has appeased Iran. It turns a blind eye to its internal repression. It turns a blind eye to its external aggression. Well, that appeasement must end. And that appeasement must end now.
My plan is to create a city that people can dream about. It's turned into dystopias. There's still so much to accomplish. But it's your time.
It's interesting about this advertisement right after the curse and the blessing.
Nations of the world
before
support
before we continue with Netanyahu's speech, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Is this dual purpose vitamin? It's K2, MK7. K2 will help to improve your bones and your joint health. But in addition, it will also help with your cardiovascular health when you stack it with D3 and turmeric, ashwagandha, C60, and supplements that bring down LDL and increase your HDL levels. So it's a dual purpose vitamin to help to improve your bone health, your joint health, and your cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the K2.
People of Iran who want to rid themselves of this evil regime. Responsible governments should not only support Israel in rolling back Iran's aggression, they should join Israel. They should join Israel in stopping Iran's nuclear weapons program. In this body, in the Security Council, we're going to have a deliberation in a few months. And I call on the Security Council to snap back UN Security Council sanctions against Iran, because we must all do everything in our power to ensure that Iran never gets nuclear weapons. For decades, I've been warning the world against Iran's nuclear program. Our actions delayed this program by perhaps a decade, but we haven't stopped it. We've delayed it, but we haven't stopped it. Iran now seeks to weaponize its nuclear program for the sake of the peace and security of all your countries. For the sake of the peace and security of the entire world. We must not let that happen. And I assure you, Israel will do everything in its power to make sure it doesn't happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, the question before us is simple. Which of these 2 maps that I showed you will shape our future? Will it be the blessings of peace and prosperity for Israel, our Arab partners, and the rest of the world? Or will it be the curse in which Iran and its proxies spread carnage and chaos everywhere? Israel has already made its choice. We've decided to advance the blessing. We're building a partnership for peace with our Arab neighbors while fighting the forces of terror that threaten that peace. For nearly a year, the brave men and women of the IDF have been systematically crushing Hamas's terror army that once ruled Gaza. On October 7th, the day of that invasion into Israel, that terror army numbered nearly 40,000 terrorists. it was armed with more than 15,000 rockets. It had 350 miles of terror tunnels, an underground network bigger than the New York subway system, which they used to wreak havoc above and below ground. A year later, the IDF has killed or captured more than half of these terrorists, destroyed over 90% of their rocket arsenal, and eliminated the key segments of their terror tunnel network. In major military operations, we destroyed nearly all of Hamas's terror battalions, 23 out of 24 battalions. Now, to complete our victory, we are focused on mopping up Hamas's remaining fighting capabilities. We are taking out senior terrorist commanders and destroying remaining terrorist infrastructure. But all the while, and I'll say this one more time, we remain focused on our sacred mission, bringing our hostages home, and we will not stop until that mission is complete. Now, ladies and gentlemen, even with Hamas's greatly diminished military capability, the terrorists still exercise some governing power in Gaza by stealing the food that we enable aid agencies to bring into Gaza. Hamas steals the food, and then they hike the prices. They feed their bellies, and then they fill their coffers with money that they extort from their own people. They sell the stolen food at exorbitant prices. And that's how they stay in power. Well, this too has to end, and we're working to bring it to an end.
Since Hamas is filling their bellies, and when you overeat, you get sleepy, right? Kind of like during Thanksgiving. And there are many people that are watching stuff like this in the news, and they can't sleep because they're worried about their finances, or maybe they're going to be bombed by a terrorist or whatever. All right. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And if you have a problem sleeping, please get the Good Night formula. It has tryptophan and melatonin in it. You should be taking this every day if you're having problems sleeping, because you need 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep to be well rested in the morning, to detoxify your body the most efficiently, and to consolidate memory. If you're chronically depriving your body of sleep, you are increasing the chances of dementia, illness, lack of energy, a lowered immune system, because when you stay up all night and you're not getting enough sleep and well-rested sleep, your cortisol levels go up. So your immune system goes down, because of that chronic inflammation. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the Good Night formula. Take it every night if you're having a problem sleeping. It's really important to get good sleep. And when you do, you're going to start having more energy. You're going to have better consolidation of memory. You're going to be able to think better. You're improving the health of your body because you're detoxifying. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Good Night formula. Back to As the World Turns.
And the reason is simple. Because if Hamas stays in power, it will regroup, rearm, and attack Israel again and again and again, as it is vowed to do. So Hamas has got to go. Just imagine.
If you want to stop the hunger in the world, stop scrolling. Right now in North Gaza, children are going to bed hungry every night. The recent conflict has left many families without.
Just imagine. For those who say, well, Hamas has to stay, it has to be part of a post-war Gaza. Imagine in a post-war situation in World War II. Imagine allowing the defeated Nazis in 1945 to rebuild Germany. It's inconceivable. It's ridiculous. It didn't happen then. It's not going to happen now. This is why Israel will reject any rule for Hamas in a post-war Gaza. We don't seek to resettle Gaza. What we seek is a demilitarized and de-radicalized Gaza. Only then can we ensure that this round of fighting will be the last round of fighting. We are ready to work with regional and other partners to support a local civilian administration in Gaza committed to peaceful coexistence. As for the hostages, I have a message for the Hamas captors. Let them go. Let them go. All of them. Those alive today must be returned alive, and the remains of those whom you brutally killed must be returned to their families. Those families here with us today and others in Israel deserve to have a resting place for their loved ones, a place where they can grieve and remember them. This war, ladies and gentlemen, this war can come to an end now. All that has to happen is for Hamas to surrender, lay down its arms, and release all the hostages. But if they don't, we will fight until we achieve victory, total victory. There is no substitute for it. Israel must also defeat Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah is the quintessential terror organization in the world today. It has tentacles that span in all continents. It has murdered more Americans and more Frenchmen than any group except bin Laden. It's murdered the citizens of many countries represented in this room. And it has attacked Israel viciously over the last 20 years. In the last year, completely unprovoked. A day after Hamas massacre on October 7th, Hezbollah began attacks against Israel, which forced more than 60,000 Israelis on our northern border to leave their homes, becoming refugees in their own land. Hezbollah turned vibrant towns in the north of Israel into ghost towns. So I want you to think about this in equivalent American terms. Just imagine if terrorists turned El Paso and San Diego into ghost towns. Then ask yourself, how long would the American government tolerate that? A
Depends
day?
if it's Republican or Democrat.
A month? I doubt they tolerate it even for a single day. Yet Israel has been tolerating this intolerable situation for nearly a year. Well, I've come here today to say enough is enough. We won't rest until our citizens can return safely to their homes. We will not accept a terror army perched on our northern border, able to perpetrate another October 7th style massacre. For 18 years, Hezbollah brazenly refused to implement UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which requires it to move its forces away from our borders. Instead, Hezbollah moved right up to our border. They secretly dug terror tunnels to infiltrate our communities and indiscriminately fired thousands of rockets into our towns and villages. They fire these rockets and missiles not from military sites, not from that. They do that too. But they fire those rockets and missiles after they place them in schools, in hospitals, in apartment buildings, and in the private homes of the citizens of Lebanon. They endanger their own people. They put a missile in every kitchen, a rocket in every garage. I said to the people of Lebanon this week, get out of the death trap that Hezbollah has put you in. Don't let Nasrallah drag Lebanon into the abyss. We're not at war with you. We're at war with Hezbollah, which has hijacked your country and threatens to destroy ours. As long as Hezbollah chooses the path of war, Israel has no choice, and Israel has every right to remove this threat and return our citizens to their homes safely. And that's exactly what we're doing. Just this week, the IDF destroyed large percentages of Hezbollah's rockets, which it built with Iran's funding for 3 decades. We took out senior military commanders who not only shed Israeli blood, but American and French blood as well. And then we took out their replacements, and then the replacements of their replacements. And we'll continue degrading Hezbollah until all our objectives are met. Ladies and gentlemen, we're committed to removing the curse of terrorism that threatens all civilized societies. But to truly realize the blessing of a new Middle East, we must continue the path we paved with the Abraham Accords 4 years ago. Above all, this means achieving a historic peace agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And having seen the blessings that we've already brought with the Abraham Accords, the millions of Israelis who've already flown back and forth across the Arabian Peninsula, over the skies of Saudi Arabia, to the Gulf countries, the trade, the tourism, the joint ventures, the peace. I say to you, what blessing such a peace with Saudi Arabia would bring. It would be a boon to the security and economy of our 2 countries. It would boost trade and tourism across the region. It would help
This is what I'm
transform
talking
the
about
Middle
with
East.
the alignment with Ishmael and Jacob. This is you're seeing it in real time here.
Into a global juggernaut. Our 2 countries could cooperate on energy, water, agriculture.
And
artificial
metaphysically, why
intelligence.
is that? Because they are the firstborn from different mothers, but the firstborn for Abraham. And that eventual working together and that synergy is going to make that region extremely prosperous, much more prosperous than China. Okay? It'll take a little bit of time, but it's going to be much more prosperous. The alignment of Ishmael and Jacob, all right, is going to make the Middle East extremely prosperous. But this can't happen until more of Esau positive aligns with Ishmael and Jacob, and that they band together and root out the cancer of Ishmael negative. Ishmael negative is the attachment of, I'm sorry, not Ishmael negative, Esau negative. I'm very tired right now. All right, so let me step back and re-say this. The alignment of Ishmael and Jacob is going to be a very strong force for peace and prosperity in the Middle East. But for that to happen, Esau positive has to align with this coalition group, okay? Esau negative is attached to a very dark force. In biological terms, you might call it cancer. You know, a cancer cell wants to live. Evil wants to live. Esau negative wants to live, but under its operating system is of the other side. And it's a dark force. It's an evil force. And Esau has the ability to split, repent, and align himself with Ishmael and Jacob. And so, and you kind of saw that with the whole individual delegates leaving the room. You actually saw the splitting of Esau. in the on this plane, we just saw one of the time points where there was a split. Negative Esau will be battling positive Esau, Jacob, and Ishmael. And Kabbalistically, what's happening here is that there is an energy force, and I'm going to use an analogy, but it's not exact, but there's kind of like a cord of energy that went to Esau, all right, that is partially from Jacob. Why? Because they were twins. But Esau also has a connection to Satan. So Esau has a positive and a negative soul root, getting energy from a positive area and a negative area. Okay, and for Satan to be able to live in this world, it needs to be bound to negative Esau and cause havoc and destruction and infighting. Once Esau decides to repent, what will happen is the Esau will split and gain control and get the positive energy and align with Jacob, his twin. And the negative part of Esau is going to be part of this Satan. And now what's happened is that you're splitting, and now to be able to filter something or be able to cut off something, you need to disentangle. So we're seeing in our world the disentanglement of Esau, positive and negative, the polarization, to be able to cut off and kill Satan. But we're seeing this in our plane through war and destruction. But the poster children of this of Satan, all right, is this Hezbollah, Hamas, and the theocracy that's coming out of Iran, that's holding up the alignment of Jacob and Ishmael. All right, so that's, so we're actually seeing the splitting and the battling of soul roots against Satan.
Many, many other fields. Such a peace, I'm sure, would be a true pivot of history. It would usher in a historic reconciliation between the Arab world and Israel, between Islam and Judaism, between Mecca and Jerusalem. While Israel is committed to achieving such a peace, Iran and its terror proxies are committed to scuttling it. That's why one of the best ways to foil Iran's nefarious designs is to achieve the peace. Such a peace would be the foundation for an even broader Abrahamic alliance. And that alliance would include the United States, Israel, current Arab peace partners, Saudi Arabia, and others who choose the blessing of peace. It would advance security and prosperity across the Middle East and bring enormous benefits to the rest of the world. With American support and leadership, I believe this vision can materialize, and much sooner than people think. And as the Prime Minister of Israel, I will do everything in my power to make it happen. This is an opportunity that we and the world should not let go by.
My husband had no idea how we went from paying $156 a month to $29 a month for car insurance. I've been handling our finances for years now.
Now here's the sad part, is Saudi Arabia left. Now Saudi Arabia's soul root is tied to Ishmael. That's not a good sign. That something bad is going to happen to Saudi Arabia because of what they did.
Ladies and gentlemen, Israel has made its choice. We seek to move forward to a bright age of prosperity and peace. Iran and its proxies have also made their choice. They want to move back to a dark age of terror and war. And now I have a question. And I pose that question to you. What choice will you make? Will your nation stand with Israel? Will you stand with democracy and peace? Or will you stand with Iran, a brutal dictatorship that subjugates its own people, exports terrorism across the globe? In this battle between good and evil, there must be no equivocation. When you stand with Israel, you stand for your own values and your own interests. Yes, we're defending ourselves, but we're also defending you against a common enemy that through violence and terror seeks to destroy our way of life. So there should be no confusion about this. But unfortunately, there is a lot of it in many countries and in this very hall, as I've just heard. Good is portrayed as evil, and evil is portrayed as good. We see this moral confusion when Israel is falsely accused of genocide, when we defend ourselves against enemies who try to commit genocide against us. We see this too when Israel is absurdly accused by the ICC prosecutor of deliberately starving Palestinians in Gaza. What an absurdity. We helped bring in 700,000 tons of food into Gaza. That's more than 3,000 calories a day for every man, woman, and child in Gaza. We see this moral confusion when Israel is falsely accused of deliberately targeting civilians. We don't want to see a single person, a single innocent person die. That's always a tragedy. And that's why we do so much to minimize civilian casualties, even as our enemies use civilians as human shields. And no army has done what Israel is doing to minimize civilian casualties. We drop flyers, we send text messages, we make phone calls by the millions to ensure that Palestinian civilians get out of harm's way. We spare no effort in this noble pursuit. We see yet another profound moral confusion when self-described progressives march against the democracy of Israel. Don't they realize they support the Iranian-backed goons in Tehran and in Gaza? The goons who gun down protesters, murder women for not covering their hair, and hang gays in public squares, some progressives. According to the US Director of National Intelligence, Iran funds and fuels many of the protesters against Israel. Who knows, maybe some of the protesters, or even many of the protesters outside this building now. Ladies and gentlemen, King Solomon, who reigned in our eternal capital, Jerusalem, 3,000 years ago, proclaimed something that is familiar to all of you. He said, "There is nothing new under the sun." Well, in an age of space travel, quantum physics, and artificial intelligence, some would argue that's a debatable statement. But one thing is undeniable. There is definitely nothing new at the United Nations. Take it from me. I first spoke from this podium as Israel's ambassador to the UN in 1984. That's exactly 40 years ago. And in my maiden speech here, I think it's the same podium, by the way. In my maiden speech here, I spoke against a proposal to expel Israel from this body. 4 decades later, I find myself defending Israel against that same preposterous proposal. And who's leading the charge this time? Not Hamas, but Abbas, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. This is the man who claims he wants peace with Israel. Yet he still refuses to condemn the horrific massacre of October 7th. He's still paying hundreds of millions to terrorists who murder Israelis and Americans. Well, pay for slave. The more you murder, the more you get paid. And he still wages unremitting diplomatic warfare against Israel's right to exist and against Israel's right to defend itself. And by the way, they amount to the same thing. Because if you can't defend yourself, you can't exist. Not in our neighborhood, certainly, and maybe not in yours. Standing in this podium 40 years ago, I told the sponsors of that outrageous resolution to expel Israel, gentlemen, check your fanaticism at the door. Today, I tell President Abbas and all of you who would shamefully support that resolution, check your fanaticism at the door. The singling out of the one and only Jewish state continues to be a moral stain on the United Nations. It has made this once respected institution contemptible in the eyes of decent people everywhere.
I think the UN. I think the UN is just. It should be disassembled and dropped at the bottom of the ocean. But that's me. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this dual-purpose product. This is olive leaf extract. This will help to improve your immune system and your cardiovascular system. And you may ask, how does that work? Well, olive leaf extract can lower inflammation. All right. That will help with the immune system. In addition, when you reduce inflammation, it helps to prevent the buildup of plaque. All right. So it'll improve your cardiovascular health. In addition, it helps to bring down HDL levels and increase your, it helps to bring down your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. I'm extremely tired right now. All right. So olive leaf extract will bring down inflammation, help with the immune system, bring down inflammation and help with the cardiovascular system and prevent further damage of the intima for LDL to be oxidized inside the blood vessel wall. All right. With olive leaf extract, it will bring down the LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. And that's important because when you have less LDL, you have less LDL that'll be oxidized to make plaque. So this is how it'll improve your cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the olive leaf extract. It lowers LDL, increases your HDL levels, and brings down inflammation.
This UN House of Darkness is home court. They know that in this swamp of anti-Semitic bile, there's an automatic majority willing to demonize the Jewish state on anything. In this anti-Israel flat earth society, any false charge, any outlandish allegation can muster a majority. In the last decade, there have been more resolutions passed against Israel in this hall at the UN General Assembly than against the entire world combined. Actually, more than twice as many. Since 2014, this body condemned Israel 174 times. It condemned all the other countries in the world 73 times. That's more than 100 extra condemnations for the Jewish state. What hypocrisy. What a double standard. What a joke.
This is what I'm saying. The UN is a filter to see who is going to be aligned with Jacob and who's not. You're seeing it. You're seeing it in real time. This whole Kabbalistic way of seeing the events in the Middle East is playing out at the UN.
Humans are silly.
Look at that Wendy's breakfast burrito. Fresh cracked eggs, seasoned potatoes, sausage. Gotta hand it to the tortilla. That sucker's holding on for dear life. The boss of breakfast, gotta be Wendy's.
So all the speeches you heard today, all the hostility directed at Israel this year, it's not about Gaza. It's about Israel. It's always been about Israel's very existence. And I say to you, until the Jewish state is treated like other nations, until this anti-Semitic swamp is drained, the UN will be viewed by fair-minded people everywhere as nothing more than a contemptuous farce. Now, given the anti-Semitism at the UN, it should surprise no one that the prosecutor at the ICC, one of the UN's affiliated organs, is considering issuing arrest warrants against me and Israel's defense minister, the democratically elected leaders of the democratic state of Israel. The ICC prosecutors rushed to judgment. His refusal to treat Israel with its independent courts, the way other democracies are treated, is hard to explain by anything other than pure anti-Semitism. Ladies and gentlemen, the real war criminals are not in Israel. They're in Iran. They're in Gaza, in Syria, in Lebanon.
All war has war criminals on both sides. There are war criminals in the IDF, especially with the prisoners and maybe some atrocities actually on the battlefield. But it is not that prevalent. All right, let's just be honest. It happens, but it's not that prevalent. And there are war crimes that are going on with Hamas and Hezbollah. Now, is it everything that they do, a war crime? No. But the whole point here is let's stop pretending. Let's be adults and let's stop pretending. Wars do have war crimes. And both sides are involved. It happens. Now, when it does happen, investigations need to take place and people need to be held accountable. But to say that because he is fighting Hamas and Hezbollah that it's a war crime, that's horseshit. That's horseshit.
Those of you who stand with these war criminals, those of you who stand with evil against good, with a curse against the blessing, those of you who do so should be ashamed of yourself. But I have a message for you. Israel will win this battle. We'll win this battle because we don't have a choice. After generations in which our people were slaughtered, remorselessly butchered, and no one raised a finger in our defense, we now have a state. We now have a brave army, an army of incomparable courage, and we are defending ourselves. As the book of Samuel says in the Bible, Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker. The eternity of Israel will not falter. In the Jewish people's epic journey from antiquity, in our odyssey through the tempests and upheavals of modern times, that ancient promise has always been kept, and it will hold true for all time. To borrow a great poet's phrase, Israel will not go gently into that good night. We will never need to rage against the dying of the light, because the torch of Israel will forever shine bright. To the people of Israel and to the soldiers of Israel, I say, be strong and of good courage. חזקו ואמצו ואל תיראו מפניהם, כי אדוני אלוהיך הוא ההולך עמך, לא ירפך ולא יעזבך. Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live now, tomorrow, forever. Thank you.
All right, so that's my coverage for today. I just want to reiterate, pay attention to the metaphysics of this because it's going to be very important. And also take a look at those anti-aging boxes that I discussed in this video to help to improve your immune system and slow down the aging process. And again, I have this new supplement on my store. It's Mitral. It helps to maintain and gain muscle. When you get older, it's harder to maintain and gain muscle. It's really important. So, and then on top of it, mitral also helps with the mitochondria. And again, you need a lot of mitochondria to produce ATP, and muscle needs quite a bit of mitochondria. So it's important to improve your mitochondrial health and to improve your skeletal muscle structure. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get mitral to help to build muscle and maintain muscle. Very important as part of an anti-aging protocol. But again, you also need to do a little bit of resistance training and cardiovascular training on top of taking the mitral. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. That's my transmission. Again, I received on one of my smaller channels a strike on episode Gen 0, episode 72. It was about the Taiwanese Strait coverage. So please watch that on Brighteon, Bitchute, or Rumble. This is the reason why it's so important to subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please help support my work by purchasing the products, or you can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. And all those links are in the description of this video and all my videos. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.